Hi, my name is Thomas. I'm from New Orleans and I'm 21 years old now. But the story I'm about to tell you happened when I was only 12. Even now, almost a decade later, I still find myself trying to figure out what really happened that night. Sometimes I wonder if it was just an overly vivid nightmare or some kind of hallucination caused by sleep or loneliness. But deep down, I know. It was real. And it left a mark on me in a way that no logical explanation can erase. At that time, I was a quiet, homely kid, the kind who preferred the comfort of a screen to the hustle and bustle of the outside world. While other boys my age were having fun playing soccer in the streets, I was at home playing video games, watching series marathons, and immersing myself in my own fictional worlds. I already considered myself mature, you know. I was no longer afraid of the dark or nervous about being alone. At least that's what I told myself. It was a Friday night. My parents had gone out to dinner with friends, and for the first time, they left me home alone for a few hours. For me, it was like a small ritual of independence. I felt important, almost like an adult. They gave me the basic instructions. Don't open the door to strangers. Don't turn the oven on full blast. If anything, call us. I nodded, already thinking about the freedom that awaited me. As soon as they left, I ran to the couch. I ordered a pizza, put on my favorite series, and threw myself down with the remote control in my hand. The house was silent, cozy, just the way I liked it. The light from the TV was the only thing illuminating the room, creating dancing shadows on the walls. It was one of those perfect nights when everything seems to be in its place. The pizza arrived. I ate it straight from the box, just like in the movies. I had 2 more and then sprawled out on the couch again, with a full belly and a smile on my face. I was immersed in the story of the series, without realizing how time was passing. Until the doorbell rang. The sound was dry and short, but it echoed through the house like thunder. At that moment, my body became alert. I stood up slowly, still chewing the last of a slice of pizza, thinking that maybe it was the delivery guy coming back because he forgot something, or maybe a neighbor. I don't know. When I opened the door, everything changed. A very old man was standing there, really still like a statue. He didn't move, didn't say anything, he just stared at me. The first thing that caught my attention was his skin, white, too pale, almost translucent, as if there was no blood running underneath it anymore. It was covered in small cracks like paper that had been left in the sun for too long. He looked worn out, as if he were over 100 years old. I took a step back instinctively. He didn't move. After a few seconds, his mouth slowly opened, so slowly that it seemed like his muscles had forgotten how to work. A faint whisper escaped, but I couldn't make out what it was. It sounded like a prayer, or maybe a name. I tried to stay calm. My mind was telling me it was just a lost old man, maybe with some problem. Then he spoke, in a hoarse, drawn-out voice, like leaves being blown by the wind. "I am hungry." They were 3 simple words, but there was something in them, something that made me freeze. Even so, not knowing what to do, I turned around and went into the kitchen. I grabbed some leftovers from the fridge, a piece of pizza, a loaf of bread, some fruit, and put everything on a plate. When I came back, he was still standing in exactly the same spot. I handed him the food, and he took it slowly without taking his eyes off me. His smile was strange, devious. A smile that didn't seem human, almost as if he was. Imitating something he saw, but without understanding the purpose. Like a doll, trying to pretend to be a person. He thanked me with a vague nod, and I, disconcerted, muttered "You're welcome," and hurriedly closed the door. I stood there, staring at the wood of the door for a few seconds, feeling my heart beat faster. That had been bizarre, but I tried to convince myself that it was just an old man with problems, Nothing major. It was all in my head. I went back to the couch and put on another episode of the series, but now my attention was divided. My stomach was upset, and it wasn't because of the pizza. I picked up my phone and started texting my friends, trying to distract my mind. But the silence in the house was denser, heavier. Even the light from the TV seemed less welcoming. That's when I heard a sound, a scraping, something scraping against the wall outside the house. My body froze. I thought it was just the wind, but the noise came again. It was fast, like something had run past outside. I lifted my head and looked out the window. Nothing. Just darkness. I took a deep breath and laughed at myself. I'm getting paranoid, I thought. I sat back down. But seconds later, there it was again. A figure, walking in the opposite direction. This time I was sure. Someone or something was out there. Against my will, my feet carried me to the window. I opened the curtains a crack. Dark. Silence. The street was empty, as always, but something was wrong. Very wrong. I felt like I was being watched, not just observed and watched. Suddenly the doorbell rang again. I jumped, my heart pounding in my throat. The sound was louder this time, as if it had been rang hard, angrily. I walked to the door, hesitant. I looked through the peephole door. No one. I froze. That didn't make sense. I took a few steps back, and then I heard it. 3 sharp knocks, not on the door, but on the living room window. 3. Sharp. I froze. I turned around slowly, and there he was. The old man, outside the window, motionless, looking at me with that same crooked smile. His eyes were different, black, without irises, empty. So I ran. I locked myself in my room, leaned a dresser against the door, and threw myself on the bed, shaking. I grabbed my cell phone and called my parents with shaking hands. They answered right away. I cried, talking non-stop, trying to explain. They said they were coming back, that I should lock myself in and not let anyone in. I stayed there for almost an hour, listening to every little noise in the house, expecting the worst. Until finally I heard the car in the garage. My parents rushed in and found me huddled in my room. They said there was no one outside, no sign of an old man. Nothing. But I know what I saw. The next morning we found the plate of food still on the porch, untouched, but next to it there was something on the floor, a piece of paper, yellowed, cracked. On it was written in shaky, almost illegible handwriting, "Hunger never goes away." Since then, I have never been able to be alone at night again. Something about that visit stayed with me, like a shadow that has haunted me since I was 12. And sometimes I still hear knocking on the window. I was already nervous. With every noise, every shadow that moved across the walls of the house, my body reacted as if it were under attack. My brain tried to convince me that it was just my imagination, that it was all the effect of loneliness, heavy pizza, or a marathon of horror series. But deep down there was something inside me that screamed, "This is real." I decided to do what seemed most logical. Pick up my phone and call my parents. I just wanted to hear their voices, to feel that there was someone in the world capable of protecting me, to remind myself that I was still safe. As I was typing the message, a brutal sound interrupted everything. The front door slammed so hard that the living room floor shook. My fingers stopped moving. The phone fell from my lap. A chill ran down my spine, and for a moment I thought my heart would stop. With bated breath, I walked to the window, peeked through the curtains, and there he was, the old man, outside, standing still as if he had never left. But something about him was different, very different. The rain was falling heavily, soaking everything except him. His body didn't seem to absorb the water. His skin was even drier, like old leather left out in the sun. But the strange thing was that the water was running down through the cracks in his skin, as if he were decomposing. But at the same time he was standing, alive, or something close to it. And then, for the first time, I realized he was bigger. His body seemed longer, his arms hung heavy at his sides like dry twigs, and his head, which had been hunched over his shoulders, now stood up almost unnaturally. His eyes bore into me, and the smile, that crooked, hungry smile, was still there. I froze. I felt my legs weaken, and a loud buzzing filled my ears. The room seemed to spin. I wanted to run, but my body didn't respond. Forcing a little courage, I went to the peephole in the door to confirm maybe he had left. But there was no one there. The old man had disappeared. My heart was beating in my neck, as if it were trying to escape from inside me. I was trying to understand what had happened when, out of nowhere, the kitchen door started knocking too. 3 knocks, sharp, urgent, as if something outside wanted to get in or escape. I ran over and locked the door with the latch. My fingers were shaking so much that it took me 2 minutes to turn the latch. I was sweating cold, and my head was throbbing. It was impossible. This couldn't be happening. I went back to the living room, feeling more and more surrounded, cornered. I curled up on the couch, holding my cell phone as if it were my only weapon. I typed a message to my parents. "Something is wrong. Someone is here. Please come back soon." I sent it. No response. I checked the signal. None. It felt like I was trapped in a world of my own, as if the house had been pulled into another dimension, a reality where no one could hear me scream. That's when the front door slammed again. Only this time, it was different. The sound was louder, more raw, like someone was trying to break in. And then, I heard the voice calling my name from the other side of the door. I froze. That dry, slurred voice, he knew my name. I had never told him my name. I approached the door with slow steps, every muscle in my body telling me to run in the opposite direction. But I had to see. I had to be sure. I turned the doorknob with shaking hands. The door creaked open, and what I saw made me feel like the ground had dropped out from under my feet. The house was empty, but on the inside of the door, and there was something leaning against it. A staff, an old piece of wood, twisted, blackened with age. Exactly the same as the one the old man had been holding the first time I saw him, only now he was inside my house. I felt my mind breaking. I screamed, ran down the stairs, tripped on the steps and dragged myself to my room. I locked the door, pushed the dresser against it and threw myself on the floor, breathing as if I had run a marathon. My head was spinning. I grabbed anything I could use as a weapon, a flashlight, an old trophy, even a lamp. Nothing seemed enough. Nothing seemed real. And then I heard it again. "I'm hungry." The voice, it was closer, much closer. The doorknob turned slowly. All the lights in the house went out at once. A sharp crackle ran through the wires, and then total darkness. Fear turned into absolute panic. I shook, I cried, I prayed, anything to keep my sanity. My mind begged for this to be just a nightmare, just another bad dream. I begged to wake up. But the door opened. Slowly. The creak of the wood cut through the silence like a razor, and there he was. The old man. But now, he was no longer just an old man. He was something else. His skin had become something grotesque, a grey crust riddled with deep cracks that exposed something dark and pulsing inside. As if his flesh had died on the outside, but still lived on the inside. His eyes were no longer eyes. They were pits of darkness. 2 bottomless holes, and when he smiled, teeth, thin, sharp, almost metallic. And he said, "You fed me, Thomas. Now I need more." That voice made me vomit inside. A mix of hunger and distorted pleasure vibrated in his words. I screamed, a scream that came from my soul. I ran. I jumped on the bed. He tried to grab me. I felt his fingers touch my arm. They were cold and dry like rotten wood. But with an absurd strength, I broke free with a desperate jerk and ran through the house. I didn't think. I just ran. I went through dark hallways, tripped over furniture, bumped into walls. The old man followed behind. His steps were slow but getting closer, as if time didn't matter to him, as if he already knew how everything would end. I got to the garage, and miraculously the door was unlocked. I went out into the rain, screaming. I ran down the wet street without looking back. My bare feet hit the cold asphalt. The sky was falling down on me, but I didn't care. I just wanted to run away. Suddenly, lights, a car. My parents. They stopped the car in the middle of the street when they saw me. My mother ran out and hugged me tightly. I cried, screamed, trembled. They didn't understand anything, but something in my eyes said, "Something terrible has happened." We went back to the house. They searched everything. There was no one, no sign of a break-in, no old man, no staff, nothing. But I knew. This was real. And the next morning, there it was again. A note stuck to the front door with a rusty nail. "I'm still hungry." Since that day, I haven't slept with the lights off, and sometimes when the wind blows really hard, I swear I hear his voice, calling me. And I know. Next time, he won't stop until he takes me. Those words echoed inside me for days, weeks, months. The mark on my arm didn't disappear. Quite the opposite. It seemed to grow, to pulsate, to react to my fear. It was as if it were alive, as if it had a will of its own, as if it were there, even though it wasn't. Every time I was alone for more than a few minutes, I felt a tingling sensation where the skin had been touched, a dull, discreet but constant burning, as if something inside me was moving. My parents tried to carry on with their lives as normal after that night. They said it was an explosion, a hallucination. The doctor who came in the ambulance suggested stress, sleep deprivation, maybe a growth spurt. Nothing unusual for his age, he said. Young brain, wild imagination. But I knew what I saw, I knew what I felt, and most of all, I knew he hadn't gone away. After that night, I started having nightmares every night, always the same scenario. The dark house, the door slamming shut by itself, the lights flashing, and him, always him, still, watching me, waiting. In the dream, he never said anything. He just stared at me. Sometimes he smiled. Other times he just held out his hand with those deformed, cracked fingers. I woke up sweating, with my heart pounding, and always with the mark on my arm darker than the day before. I started sleeping with the light on. I locked all the doors and windows. I put up chairs, locks, chains. I started sleeping with a knife under my pillow. My parents thought it was an exaggeration, but they didn't argue. I think they could see in my eyes that something real had happened. Little by little, I stopped going out. I distanced myself from my friends. I spent the whole day trying to stay awake, just to avoid dreams. I felt like a candle at the end of its flame, about to go out. The mark burned me. The memories haunted me, and then he came back. It was a stormy night. Of course, it always starts with rain. I was in my room, listening to the wind outside, rustling the leaves and banging the branches against the window. The thunder echoed like drums. I tried to stay calm, but I already knew what was coming. The light blinked once, twice, 3 times. And it turned off. I sat up in bed, alert. My heart was already racing before anything had happened. I grabbed the flashlight I kept in the dresser drawer. I pointed it at the door. Nothing. The silence was thicker than the darkness. That's when I heard it. A whisper. Coming from downstairs. Faint, as if it were the wind dragging through the cracks in the house. Calling my name. My throat went dry. My body stiffened. The knife was under the pillow. I grabbed it. I walked down the stairs in silence, the flashlight shaking in my hand. Each step seemed to sink beneath my feet. I approached the kitchen. Nothing. The light from the flashlight shook as much as my hand. The living room empty. The windows closed. But the back door, it was open. Not wide open. Just a crack. Just enough to let a sliver of air in. I walked over, pushed slowly with the tip of the knife and saw it. The old man, though, standing in the middle of the yard. The rain was falling like razors, but he didn't move. His arms hung at his sides, and he stared at me with those empty eyes. In his other hand, my staff, the same one, that crooked, scarred, living wood. But something was different. He was more solid, as if he were more present, as if each time he returned, he became less of a ghost and more of a part of the real world. Then he spoke in a low, almost fatherly tone. "You fed me once, Thomas, but it doesn't end there." The flashlight's light failed. When it came back on, he was closer. I took a step back, tripped on the carpet, and fell. I jumped up, gasping, and slammed the door shut. It froze. I pushed the refrigerator against it, then the table. I lay there, leaning against it, my chest heaving. But then, the mark on my arm burned. I looked. It was red, pulsing, as if reacting to his proximity, as if saying, "He's here." Suddenly, the house vibrated, doors slamming, windows shaking. The hallway light turned on by itself and then went out again. The sound of rain faded. The world outside went silent. It all came down to one thing, breathing, his breathing behind me. I turned slowly, the knife ready, but he wasn't there. I ran upstairs, went to my room, locked the door and pushed the dresser aside like last time. I sat on the floor, trembling, crying, muttering forgotten prayers. He hadn't invaded yet, but I could feel it. He didn't need to come in. He was already inside me, in my skin, in my mind, in my soul. That night I didn't sleep. The next morning my parents said they heard noises, but they thought it was just the storm. When I told them what I saw, my father took me to the doctor. They ran tests. They gave me medication for anxiety. But nothing could remove the mark. Nothing could remove the old man's gaze from my memory. Today, at 21 years old, I still live here. The house is the same. My parents travel a lot, and I'm alone for days. I try to look strong. I try to pretend that everything is over. But at night, and in the dark, I still hear that voice saying, "I'm thirsty." And I know next time he won't just mark me. He'll take me.